Hello again. Welcome to MTG Studios. I'm Maria. For nearly 25 years, I was an elementary school art teacher. I taught students from pre-K through 8th grade. Quite a wide range of ages and behaviors and skills. One of the things I decided that I was not going to do as an art teacher was I was not going to make my students learn art skills in a boring way. Some of the ways that I learned, shading and form, color, all those techniques I learned through traditional ways like making a color wheel or learning how to shade forms like spheres and cubes and cones and cylinders. These are all necessary skills, very necessary. However, I believe that there is a more fun approach to learning these skills. And that's what I'm going to cover in today's tutorial, part 2 of our journaling series. It will be necessary for you to develop these skills, learn how to use the tools at your disposal. Whatever it is you choose to work in, you will need to develop skills to take you further in your medium of choice. Although many artists will use the terms sketchbook and journal interchangeably, there are slight differences between a sketchbook and an art journal. In your art journal, you are going to be using a combination of words and images. You might explore new ideas in your art journal, but then you're going to write about those ideas. You're going to use your art journal for a more intimate self-expression of your thoughts, your process, things that might be weighing heavily on your mind that you can only get out through that combination of words and images. Your sketchbook, however, is going to be a place where you are practicing specific skills that you will be using in a future painting or drawing outside of your sketchbook. So it's a place for you to practice your skills. And it's very important to have both of these, the artist's sketchbook and the artist's journal, to develop yourself as an artist. Although I don't believe that practice makes perfect, I do know that practice is necessary in order to build your skills and to develop your craft. So, without further ado, let's get started because it's time for art. Now, the typical boring method that I learned and that most art students learn is how to draw form and shade things to make them look realistic. And typically, an art teacher would have you draw a circle, a cube, a cone, and a cylinder, and then shade them in to make them look realistic. Now this is, as I said, the boring method. And it is advisable to do this occasionally and learn this. But we're going to take a more enjoyable approach to this very important skill. But first, I do want to take time to highlight a couple of things on this page for you. First and foremost, it's important for you to establish a light source. Now, landscaping is a whole other ball of wax because you've got light coming from the sun and it's just drenching your landscape, and it seems like it's coming from all sorts of directions. So for today's lesson, we are going to focus on more interior still life objects and establish that light source from either the right or the left. And wherever your light source is coming from, you are going to have your highlight on that side. The highlight is going to be the lightest part of your object where the light source is hitting it directly. On the opposite side, you're going to have what's called your core shadow. Now, your core shadow is going to be one of your darkest areas, as well as the core shadow area of your cast shadow. Your cast shadow is the shadow that is thrown off the object onto another surface, whether it's the surface that your cone or cube or your sphere is sitting on, or whether it's a cast shadow onto another object right next to it. Your reflected light is very, very important. It's going to be this little tiny bit of light right on the edge of your object that is reflected from maybe the background or the table surface or another object. It's very important to reserve that reflected light area. See how small that is? It's very important to reserve that to create the illusion of form. And form is what this lesson is all about when we are using shading to create the objects on our page. So when we're thinking of things like spheres, think in terms of circles, crescent shapes, and ellipses. As you can see here in the sphere that I've drawn, is we start with a circle, but the shadow, the core shadow, is in a crescent shape, and the cast shadow is in an elliptical shape. When we're talking about cubes, we really need to understand our 1-point and 2-point perspective. We need to create the illusion that that form is real and sturdy. Sometimes when you draw a cube, you think, oh, something's a little off. Look at my lines. My 3 vertical lines here are completely parallel. Neither one of them is leaning into another or leaning away from another. They're completely parallel. My 3 horizontal lines are also completely parallel to one another. It's only these 3 lines here that go back that create that illusion of depth, and they are the ones that lean, and they go back to a vanishing point somewhere on our horizon line, which is in this case imaginary. So those are the only 3 lines that are not completely parallel. So if your vertical and horizontal lines are looking a little wonky, check and make sure that they're parallel to one another, and make sure that these are the ones that go back at an angle towards that vanishing point. Your cone, you want to think in terms of triangles, and that bottom is going to be curved, not completely straight. That's the one that creates that illusion of form in your cone. All right? And with your cylinder, you want to think in terms of ellipses and eye level. Your 2 vertical lines on either side of that cylinder are going to be parallel with one another, but depending on where your eye level is on this object, which is right now my eye level is above that cylinder. So I see the top, but I don't see the bottom. And the edge of this ellipse is going to be equal to the edge of this ellipse. They're not going to be vastly different. So if I'm looking at this cylinder from below, I'll see the bottom of that cylinder but not the top. If I'm looking at it straight on, I won't see the bottom or the top. I'll see this curved line up there and this curved line down here, but I will not see the bottom or the top of that cylinder. If my eye level is above that cylinder, then yes, I will see the top of that cylinder, but not the bottom. And again, these 2 lines are going to mimic each other, here and here. So, let the fun begin. For our sphere, instead of just drawing a simple circle, I want you to find objects in your house, whether it's a ball or, in this case, I've rated my refrigerator, and found a lemon and a tomato. These are going to be my spheres, and I'm going to try and draw these. For my cube, you can find cubes all over the house. I found this square tin of tea, and I'm going to use that to try and draw that. You can also use a book. Use your imagination, scour the house. And that cone is going to be the troublemaker. There aren't too many objects in the house that have that cone shape. Ice cream cone, definitely. But I found these juicers in my kitchen, and they certainly have a conical shape to them there and there. So I'm going to use these for my cone. And that cylinder is going to be real easy. You can find all sorts of cans in this cylinder shape everywhere in the pantry in your house. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use these various objects, and we are going to attempt to draw them and shade them in and make them look realistic. So let's get started. Hello, welcome again to, where are we? Needed to, why can't I say this correctly? For nearly 25 years, I was an art teacher, elementary school art teacher. Let's just say it like that.